Well, welcome to another episode of our podcast. And I believe our podcast now has a name, right? Belonging, Becoming, and Beloved. Sean?
Yes. See,
Okay,
that's the official now that we're doing.
that's the official one. But we are so excited today because I have one of my colleague here who's been in the same cohort with me. We became the Presbyterian leader almost around the same time. That's why our path crossed. She is this amazing Presbyterian executive in Alaska, Yukon Presbytery to be specific. But I know Elizabeth have been doing a lot of community building activities since community development activities since she was out of seminary, and so I'm just really inspired by their. I don't know. I'm chicken, right? Because like I don't like snow. So I don't know why. I mean, reading some of your thing, you're like, oh, we got to get back to Alaska. I'm like, really? You know? And so I'm just thrilled to have her here with us today. And then on top of that, there's a lot of thing going on. Sorry. And then on top of that, we have Matt, her other half, and he is doing some amazing things right now, and I just can't imagine what that household's just like a dinner table. What do you all talk about? I'm just like, okay, so
We have time to eat dinner?
Yeah, but
Sit down anymore?
this is the most time we've spent together all week.
oh my goodness, oh my goodness. But anyway, we're excited to also hear from Matt, and I know Matt is the senior pastor of First Presbyterian Church in Anchorage. And but I'm gonna let him talk about what he's doing. I don't want to, so for those of you who didn't know yet, I think you're in for a treat. So there you go. So share with a little bit of what's going on right now in Yukon, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. And it's so good to see you. I was so sad to miss our final PLF year, but we had two graduations, a high school graduation, college
two.
graduation, two of our three kids. Then they graduated in
Wow.
that same week. So there was really no way that I could make it to the East Coast from Alaska. But yes, I am the executive presbytery of the Presbytery of Yukon, which is Anchorage all the way up to Uktiavik, formerly Barrow, which is the northernmost town in our country. And it sits at the very top of our state, up in the Arctic Circle, up on the Chukchi Sea in the ocean, in the Arctic Ocean. So I have 20 churches in my presbytery. I've got urban churches in Anchorage and in Fairbanks, and then I have very rural Alaska Native churches that are both Inupiat Alaska Native and St. Lawrence Island Yupik Alaska Native. There are 234 federally recognized tribes in Alaska. So we have an incredibly diverse state of people and an incredibly diverse group of Alaska Native tribes and villages all peppered through our big, beautiful state. And my presbytery has 8 of those Alaska Village churches. So I have a really unique and different presbytery in that I've got a mixture of churches here in Anchorage, which is the largest city in the state at 350,000 people. And then I have churches that are in Alaska Native villages of just 250 people. That would be almost entirely Indigenous communities. And then a former mission church that was put there by our denomination maybe 100 years ago. Those churches do not have pastors anymore, but they have commissioned lay pastors that have been trained and sent from our presbytery. And some of them only are now being held together by very faithful elders and deacons in the community. So kind of across the board, that's a brief picture of the description of my presbytery. So
Wow, must be interesting traveling all over it. Is it small plains?
it's small plains. All of the Alaska Native villages can only be reached by plane. There are no roads in that part of the state. This is up in the Arctic, and then St. Lawrence Island, which is actually closer to Russia than mainland Alaska.
Wow.
Wow.
7 miles from the Siberian east. And so you can see Russia. You see the mountains of Russia when you're in the community of Gambol. A large Alaska Airlines jet does go up to Uktiavik, but then from there you have to take smaller planes to the smaller communities. And then the churches in Anchorage and Fairbanks I can drive to. But yes, there are no roads.
Wow.
off the road system. So that's what we refer to in the Presbytery, the on the road system and off the road system churches.
That is vastly different than like Presbyterians. Like here in Southern California, I drive or I can get someplace in 2.5 hours that I need to.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, you have to actually think about how you're going to get to different churches, as opposed to like, okay,
incredibly expensive. We only have Presbytery twice a year. It's an in-person gathering for several days. And we might have to move to once a year because of the expense. Fuel cost of traveling. It can cost $1,000 to $1,500 to get one of our elders from a rural community down to Anchorage.
Wow.
They have to go on several flights, and a 2-day Presbytery meeting for them might be 5 days because of the travel on either end and the logistics.
Wow.
So we try to do some of our meetings on Zoom, but some of those communities don't have consistent internet. So it's a real issue of equality up here to actually have everybody represented. We often don't because of the logistical challenges here.
Amazing. Wow. I'm never gonna say anything about my driving anymore, Sean. I mean, like I have no words for it, but that's love, dedication, and faithfulness right there, Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you for doing that important work and being with people. I'm sure those small churches really need presence of people, like of knowing that people care. And oftentimes that could be something, right? Just even sitting with people, not even saying anything. And I think that is so important. As EPs, I think for all of us, we resonate that a lot. It just making the effort to be there when they need somebody, or even when they just don't think they need anybody, but just to show up.
Well, showing up is the key, and I haven't been able to get to every one of the communities yet, even though I've been in the role for a few years now, because you only go really when you're most invited into a community, and a few of those villages have not had need yet. Some have more need than others. So when I map out my travel and the expense of travel, I've gone to the communities that have asked me to come and that have the most need. But that showing up and showing consistent support from the Presbytery is the key, because the narrative of these churches in the years that I've been in this role, and even before that, is that has the denomination forgotten us? Because we funded the National Mission Board decades ago, but that has meant that those mission churches don't have pastors anymore. And I know that we did that as a denomination for some very good reasons. There were some very problematic ways that we've done mission work in the past, and that would be an entire subject of a podcast to get into the destruction and harm that some of the colonial efforts have taken into some of these communities. But they're also still asking for support and asking for pastors and saying, can pastoral leadership still come to us? Could we do it in a healthier model? Is anybody, still going to support us? And we don't have that funding in the Presbytery or in the National Church right now. So finding a way to let this group of our large family know that we're still a connectional church and they have not been abandoned, but also recognizing that that support isn't going to look like it did in the past is the tough line I'm constantly walking, of never wanting to promise what we can't promise anymore, and encouraging local leadership with connection. But in reality, we did strip away a lot of those supports and ask these communities, just figure out a way to do this on your own now. And it hasn't really gone well in some of those communities. Some of those churches are really struggling because they don't have consistent leadership. And we, as a denomination, as a presbytery, haven't found the way yet to find that, because of what I mentioned, those logistical, financial difficulties. We don't send mission pastors anymore, and that's both good and bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I sense your passion for who and that you're serving, and I'm more curious. Like, how did you and Matt both get to Alaska? Like, are you native Alaskans, or because I saw that in your bio you went to Princeton, and so how did you even end up where you both are now?
Yeah.
Well, it started with you.
Yeah, I came to Alaska in 1994 and went to Southeast Alaska first. There was a program that doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Southeast Alaska Volunteers in Mission, the CVIM program. So I was a part of that mission group and fell in love with Alaska. I had just always wanted to come to Alaska, and I don't know why. So I finally made my way here at the age of 23, and I had yet to meet Matt when I did that. When I met him the following year, at Westminster College, north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because we're both East Coasters. I grew up in Maryland, Matt grew up in New York. And we started dating. I told him, you just have to be open to moving to Alaska because I just spent the summer there and it's the most beautiful place I've ever lived. And I would love, love, love to live there someday. So just kind of have that. So
Her love was entirely conditional. If You'd only stick it out with me if I would come up here. And so, yeah, we got married in 97 and we were both in jobs that were sort of wrapping up and we weren't sure what was coming next. We visited seminaries at that point, but didn't quite feel right. And then she was giving her essentially goodbye sermon at the college. And there was a man present there who made an announcement ahead of time. Hey, I'm the pastor at First Presbyterian up in Anchorage, Alaska. So if anyone's interested in volunteering, I'm in interviewing for our youth ministry position there. Let's see me after the service. So then Elizabeth steps forward to deliver her sermon and says, well, Matt and I are newly married. We're not sure what's coming next. And she looked right at him and said, but we're probably taking your job in Alaska. And he took us out to lunch afterwards. And long story short, here we are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So that was March. We got married in January of 1997. That was March of 97. And then we interviewed in April, took the job, and drove from Pennsylvania to Alaska that summer and served at the same church Matt is serving at now as the head of staff for 4 years as the youth directors, and then went
Wow.
to Princeton Seminary from there. We had our first child up here and then kind of realized if we both do feel called to full-time ministry, we've sort of done what you can do in 4 years in youth ministry. We need to go get our MDivs.
Yeah.
So we went to Princeton together, which was a challenge. Both of us in school full time with a child,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
was also a great experience. We loved
It was
it.
so good. We love our years there a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
That,
then how we got back up here.
Oh gosh, how we got back up here was we stayed in touch with all those youth group kids from our first time up, and one of those families, their daughter was getting married, so they flew us up to co-officiate that wedding. That was in 2012, right? And at that point, we were ready to move on from the call that we were serving, and got up here and said hello and thank you to the church that had supported us throughout our seminary years. And they caught us afterwards and said, we're going to be putting this call public pretty soon. And I said, I don't know. We've changed a lot in our theology since back in the 90s. And, going through seminary, I'm not sure we're the best fit. And the man's name was Scott. And he kind of chuckled and said, so has this church. Reach out. We'll see what we can do. Meanwhile, on that trip, our kids looked around at Alaska and they
We had 3 at that point. We brought them with us.
So they were like 4 and 8 and 12 or so. And our 8-year-old looked around and said, how could you have ever left this place?
Why don't
You're selling this that I need to go to Alaska now. You're selling this awfully well.
Exactly.
Well, 2 of our 3 kids work in the tourism industry, and they say every day they meet people who say, this is a bucket list item. People who are retirees.
It is.
My whole life I've wanted to come here and I'm finally here. And our kids are like, yeah, I've been here for decades.
Yeah. Yeah. Because definitely, like you say, it is in my bucket list.
Yeah.
But you guys actually lived there. That's different because I'm like, I have a way back. But you guys were so in love with the place and with the people, with the community, that you're willing to, because you're both, I suspect your families are not in Alaska.
No.
So
Right.
they're
It's hard.
still like out east, right? And so to really leave that behind, that takes just a bonus of like a step of faith to do that.
Yeah.
And
It
so
was a call. It was definitely, thankfully, it was an undeniable call.
Yeah.
All the things lined up that year in such a way that it was so clear to us, we're meant to go back.
Mhm.
And having lived here before, we knew the winters are really hard. Everybody pictures Alaska with the summer, and it is beautiful and incredible. But the winters are long, depending on what part of the state you live in. They're dark and then darker and darker. So it's a hard place to live, but thankfully we lived here before. We knew all of that, and then that call was really clear.
Yeah.
For Matt at least, for both of us, but the job was just a job for you. We moved
Yeah.
here then with me not knowing exactly what God was going to do, and I had the opportunity to do a couple really interesting things before I took this job, which I've only been in
Yeah.
now almost 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 3. Yeah.
And about reading all of what you both are doing, you are deeply vested in the community. And that's where I was like, whoa, sometimes us as pastors are like, okay, we're invested in the community a little here and there where we have time to because we have congregations to run type thing. But in reading both of your bios and your stories, tell us a little bit about how you are invested in Alaska and into your communities, because I found that fascinating and I wish I could be more invested in San Diego and stuff like that. But I'm just reading what you are a part of. So tell us a little about how you're vested in the community.
You go.
You sure?
Yeah.
Well, I'm really fortunate that was part of the church. The church's call to me was they wanted the church to be invested in the community and really out there in the community, doing things, being active, being present. We're lucky that we are a downtown church, and a lot of stuff happens on the park right across the street from us. And so it feels just very natural that we would open the doors and lay out the welcome mat for things like the 4th of July parade or Pride parade and festivities. All these things happen right in front of us. So we just open the door and say, everybody hates porta potties. Come inside and use ours. They're clean. So, that's on the surface level. But then the church has been really aware of, as a Matthew 25 congregation, that we're called to feed the hungry or visit the prisoner and so on. All of those things are great on a one-to-one basis, but we can also be hugely impactful when we address the policies that cause those hardships in the first place. And so that's been something that since I got here in 2013, for the second time, they have wanted that, and they called me with that intent to get us out there doing those things. So I've been very involved in policy advocacy and at the municipal up to the state level and federal level, and I'm on the board of several different do-gooder organizations here in the city. It's a really beautiful thing that some of that is above and beyond what I'm called by the church, but some of it the church even says, for example, your hours spent on the board of directors for Covenant House Alaska, they consider that part of my church work.
Oh,
and
wow.
I can leave the salary leave the office, and that's part of my salaried time is to go serve the Covenant House. So I can't say enough about how lucky I am to serve this congregation, and it allows me to do that.
So
great.
Matt, I think this is a good segue. Tell us this little thing you're doing. Your side gig right now.
My side gig right now, back in October, I declared my candidacy for Alaska's one and only seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. One seat for the whole state, and it's the biggest state. It's about a third of the size of the rest of the country put together. So just like Elizabeth was saying, travel is such a huge factor in her country. To travel around to meet people. I know you've talked about the importance of hearing people's stories, and that's a huge part of what I'm doing in this campaign. I've been a bit surprised at how similar the two things are, ministry and for office, because if you're doing it right, you're listening a whole heck of a lot.
Absolutely.
Jumping into it because you care about people, you care about your community, and you want to be of service to help make people's lives better. And we've all encountered pastors who have different motivations than that, and how yucky that can be. Same with elected officials. You can tell when you're meeting someone whose primary goal is more self-serving than community.
Yeah. Because I love what you say. So I'm reading this from one of your campaign slogan, probably faith in Alaska, strength for our future. And you said, I'm running for Congress to help build a future where integrity guides our politics, compassion drives our policies, and every Alaskan has a fair chance to thrive. I just find that just so beautiful when someone in politics can talk about compassion in a very authentic way, like really knowing both of you how invested you are with that community. It's like, how can you not vote for this guy, right? Like seriously, I mean, they can easily come back, and but they are there with you all, and with all the years that you serve as that pastor of that church, doing all these things. I find that, so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how does serving in ministry help you make this decision to then go into politics? I mean, I don't want to say go into politics, but to run for the office.
Yeah, and like Elizabeth said before, that could be a whole podcast in and of itself. And
Yes.
our discernment process, well, first of all, was ours, not just my decision by any means. It
I
was
hope so. Knowing her,
yeah.
you better. Yeah.
She is my boss, you know. And so I had to check with the executive presbyter. But it was the two of us, and with a big amount of time given to listening to our kids, making sure they were cool with it. Even though our youngest is 18, we still want to protect them as best we can,
Yeah,
you know. And
absolutely.
so, but that discernment process really was a natural outgrowth of the way my ministry has been community involved all along, and seeing the way those policies hit. But also, the state of our country right now is really, in my opinion, pretty bizarre, and is characterized by a cruelty at the top level in the Oval Office. You know,
Mhm.
there's the dishonesty, sure, and the criminal corruption of enriching himself over others, but really just the cruelty and the complete lack of ethics that we see across the board right now in the highest levels of government, that I feel like nationwide, and certainly within my own heart, there's a hope and a desire that we can have more ethical behavior and
Mm.
principles guiding what people do. And when Trump was reelected, and then when the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed, which deeply hurt Alaska by cutting health care for, I think, over 30,000 Alaskans are going to lose their health care, and making food insecurity way worse than it already had been. And we were already amongst the worst in the nation.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so many people, including our own kids, including my own congregation members, would come up to me in tears and say, "Why doesn't somebody do something to protect us?"
Mm.
And so this is what I'm doing to do that.
Wow,
So you
that's
must see here, you
great.
must hear some incredible stories. Both of you hear incredible stories. As Elizabeth, you're traveling around the Yukon Presbytery, really getting the heartbeat of what people, what is going on. And as Matt, as you're traveling around, just talking to different people, one question we'd like to ask is what is your hope? You know what I mean? There's so much as you talk to different people. What are people's hopes of, and what maybe what is God doing in Alaska?
Your turn.
Yeah. Those are huge questions. What are our hopes and what is God doing? God is surprising us, I think. I have found in this role that I can often, and maybe Francis, you can relate to this, I start to get stuck on what are the problems coming at me and what do I do to fix that? Instead of what is God doing in this situation? I'm here to come alongside and to listen and to watch, and I might see something new. And it's not about this solution that I might be bringing. Because sometimes
Mhm.
I get so frustrated and I think, oh, the answer is I need to find a pastor. I need to find some more money. I need to find some logistical fix. And instead, I recognize some of the issues going on in our communities. And I'm speaking of our more rural communities right now.
Yeah.
And some of the Alaska Native villages, they are decades in the making of struggle, and they're going to be decades in the making of solutions. And my role right now is to come alongside and give the message of you have not been abandoned or forgotten. God has always been with you, way before the Presbyterian Church came and added polity and names and language to things, that you
Yeah.
already were living in your indigenous capacity of celebrating the Creator and what is here and how God is working in your life. So I try now to listen more, speak less. That's also true in politics. Listen more, speak less. Let the stories unfold and teach me what has God done in this community. And then I want to go help the national church hear those stories and help other
That's
people. Oh,
beautiful.
we are
Mhm.
not forgotten. You need to listen to these voices. They're not represented anywhere. We don't have an Alaska Native person anywhere in leadership in the presbytery at all in the
Mm.
USA. In the past, we have, but right now we don't. And so, getting those stories out there so that people can hear that in some of the harshest environments in our country, in some of the smallest villages that are completely dependent on subsistence food, There are churches and there are blessings of the whaling captains before they go out. There are singspirations. There is praise music. There are a group of women
Wow.
translating the New Testament into Inupiat right now in Uktiavik. They meet once a week and they've been translating the New Testament and now they're working through the Old Testament and they're
Wow.
translating that into the Inupiat language. There are hymn books translated in the Inupiat language. These are women in their 80s that are meeting and just doing it verse by verse around a kitchen table. Like people need to know about this. God
That is
is doing
amazing.
incredible things, but we're so far away, and I think there's so many sometimes negative or wrong stereotypes of Alaska being just, what do you even have power? Where do you live in igloos? Like there's so much lack of education.
Right.
I wish we could get more people up here. One of the things I've done every time I've traveled in this role to GA or any conference is just keep celebrating Alaska, talk about Yukon Presbytery, invite people. And the co-moderators were at our Presbytery meeting in
Yeah.
October. So that was fantastic. Tony and Cece came and I had a chance to fly them all the way up to Uktiavik. I thought if you're going to come to Alaska, you're not going to just stay in Anchorage because you can see Alaska from Anchorage, but there are some parts of Alaska that you just can't see in a big urban city. So those are some of the stories that I want to tell about rural Alaska. About our urban churches, we have the churches that have the same struggles everybody else has. We have
Yeah.
two churches right now that have pastors that are about to retire. We desperately need pastors to think about moving up here.
Yeah.
Fairbanks and Anchorage are big cities. They've got
Hmm.
amenities. People should not be afraid to come. So that's a story
Yeah.
to get out there too. Please consider looking at Alaska when you're looking for where to go. We need some strong interim positions, and we have a few long-term called and installed positions open, both in Anchorage and Fairbanks. And it's a great
Yeah.
place to serve. Our presbytery is a big, spread out, warm, loving family.
Mhm.
And people that come here, every time I've had a national visitor, they have said, I feel different at your presbytery meetings. It is so clear
Mm.
that there's a family feel here. And even though you're dealing with huge struggles, everybody's got their heart in it and they're trying to work together. So I want to tell that story too. Please think about coming to Alaska. Talk to me, call me. I will talk to anybody about all the different positions we have open and the opportunity we have here because your life will be changed by living in such a unique, beautiful place.
As we talked to
Long
everybody,
answer.
Francis, I was like, man, I want to go to this place. We just talked to somebody in Puerto Rico. I'm like,
Right.
we're going to go. Francis, we're just going to travel. Let's just go places. We
Yeah,
don't need
exactly.
jobs.
Yeah, we'll just take this on the road. But I so love hearing your heart, Elizabeth. I think that is so amazing because oftentimes as a EP we get in this little box where we like problem solving, right? And then we think, well, if we can solve that, we're done. But the truth is, no, that's not it, right? Because like oftentimes I think our job is to be there with our people. It's
Mhm.
be there when they struggle, is to hear their voices, it's to help build them up, provide them with hope. When they don't have, like, they can't see the hope, right? Like I have churches in the desert. They're like, well, we can't afford a pastor. How do we do this? I mean, it's probably very similar to the churches in Alaska. It just different climate, right? Like you have snow, we have all the sands you want. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it is still like a very small city and it's struggling and they're trying to be faithful. And I find that so beautiful because people are faithful. And so how do we I almost feel like our job is to kind of continue to kind of give them hope. Keep that in front of them so they can take that next step. And so I wonder how in that kind of situation, how do you deal with churches that seemingly they're like, what do we do? We're stuck. And how do you provide like words of encouragement? What's your approach in that situation?
That's a really good question because it is really hard because I want to listen and know that what I'm experiencing as a white woman here in Anchorage is not at all what they are experiencing in their rural communities. And I don't come in thinking I've got some word of hope that you've not heard before. It's more a listening, tell me the story of how God has sustained this church over the
Mm.
decades and your family, and what is your hope for your community, and do a lot of kind of spiritual accompaniment like you were mentioning. But um, there isn't a simple solution. Right now, I remind them that they're not alone, that the struggles that they might be facing, whether it's one of my urban churches asking me for what we need is a pastor, we need a youth director, we need all the young families to come back. We're declining in membership. I remind people we do not know what God is doing in our denomination, but what you're struggling with is happening in every presbytery that I know of, every presbytery that I listen to,
Yes.
every one of my colleagues. These struggles are there, but there's these
Mhm.
surprising stories of here's a church that's growing over here. Here's a pastor that has now decided to come when a couple months ago you thought no one will ever apply for this position. So you cannot lose hope. Be ready to be surprised. Just yesterday, a retired stated clerk of Genesee Valley Presbytery and a retired pastor named Reverend Val Fowler flew out to Anchorage and flew up to Uktiavik to be their supply pastor for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
He's
Wow.
decided he decided this past year, it's a long story, but it's a surprising story. A year ago, I never would have guessed that we would have this opportunity. They are looking for a full-time pastor up there. They have their information on the CLC for months and months now, looking for an interim. He ended up visiting Fairbanks as a vacation last year, started hearing people talk about all the different unique churches and where the
Right.
needs were. And somebody said, the largest need is probably our church that's at the top of the state, at the top of the world. It's really hard to find somebody to go there. And he said it felt like a call. And he was like, I could do that. I'm retired and I'm up for an adventure and I could do that. So yesterday he flew up there from here to spend 3 months. So I don't know. I guess my long answer is I do not know what God is doing, but I need to be open to be surprised and to continue to give that message of hope that we do not know, as long as we respond day by day to be faithful, not cynical, trusting that God loves this church and has loved it for a very, very long time and has loved it way before me and will outlive me and you both. Then we need to just be ready to be surprised by what's new and what's coming, and try to offer that hope in the midst of listening to, yes, I understand it's been really hard. You've been without leadership for decades.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is a legitimate struggle. You live in a community that people don't understand. You live in a state that is, defunding a lot of things right now, in a nation that's doing the same thing, and you're scared. Like, recognizing those very real struggles and not trying to placate that with any kind of faith language that doesn't deal with the honest struggle, I don't think is helpful either. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
that means lifting up lamentation as part of the role
Yes,
and part of the
absolutely.
faith story.
Yeah.
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 So what are you hearing, Matt? What do you see as you're going around, and what do you see the hope in God doing?
Boy, so much hope. I often feel like I encounter more hope amongst people who are struggling than amongst the wealthy and comfortable, because that's what hope is built for. And so I don't feel my job so much as to provide hope, because that's the one thing they have. What I want to do is add
Mm.
hope to the practical outcome, that they have enough food and shelter and
Yeah.
opportunities to do what they need to do. The hope is rich all over the place. The question is, are we going to be able to connect that to those outcomes? And so that's a lot of what I'm hearing, is people saying, here's what we want. We want to be able to afford our groceries. We want to be able to go see the doctor without
Yeah.
bankrupt, and we want to just have a simple, decent place to live. How can we make that happen? And that's across the board. That's from the farthest left to the farthest right. Those are the same needs people have.
Mm.
And a lot of people voted for this current administration. They thought these things were going to happen, that's what was going to be
Right.
addressed. Now they're seeing how deeply, deeply betrayed they have been. Um, Meanwhile, so that's on the political side, but also on the church side, still that hope is present. And I'm seeing a lot of people come through our doors in the last decade for sure, but there's been an uptick of people who have been deeply wounded by church communities in the past. People who are maybe deconstructing from a conservative evangelical sort of mindset and are recognizing the harm being done by that mindset, both in the church and in politics, and recognizing there's harm being done here. There's an abusive flavor to what we see taking place. But at the same time, I'm not ready to let go of Jesus, not ready to let go of this wonderful faith that I've been raised in. So how can I keep pursuing this relationship with God, but not do it in a way that is so non-inclusive or non-compassionate? And a lot of those folks are finding us because of the reputation this congregation has of, just authentic, humble service, being out there feeding the hungry. Any given Sunday, we'll have as many as 30 people worshiping with us who are homeless. And while we don't have the ability to give them all homes, we can certainly sit side by side with them and share the Lord's Supper with them and feed them for the moment. And so, along obedience in the same direction, as the book says, that continued presence in the community of saying, our faith compels us to greater honesty, not less, as you're seeing in other churches, and to greater compassion, not less, to greater humility, not less. That's resonating with people simply by contrast.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you're in a unique position because oftentimes as pastors, our outreach in the community is kind of limited. Like we run across people, but a lot of the people we talk to are congregation members, as opposed to you, Matt, having to engage wholly in the public. That saying, hey, as you're running for Congress, you need to talk to the person down the street. And oftentimes, like, we'll wave, but not really engage. And I think you're at a unique perspective of really being able to dive into people's lives, as opposed to, well, we're dealing with we need another roof. We need, all the things that an institutional church deals with that we sometimes don't get out from under that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And it does broaden, my input a lot. And I remember early on when I started in this call, I came home on a Sunday afternoon and Elizabeth said, "You're still in preacher voice." Because I was there at lunch being like, "Boy, I would love some more chips and salsa." And she was like, "Switch over, you're home now." And so now I'm needing to switch over to the political side also sometimes, but all of that again should be much more heavily focused on listening. And so, like you said, I'm now beyond that church context of hearing from more people, and it's educational. It helps me not to be stuck in my own bubble. Social media does the same. Your algorithm keeps you locked in, and this is really helping to broaden my perspective. I find it very encouraging. I think while the divisiveness out there is, of course, very, very real, I see more common ground than I thought there might be. And more hope for building bridges than I thought there might be.
So I'm curious, when you make this announcement to your congregation, what did they say, and how are you planning to kind of have them come alongside of you if elected, and what would that look like?
It's been a beautiful, beautiful relationship with this church from the beginning. Again, I'll say how lucky I am. And the two of us talked about it a lot. How do we broach this topic initially? So we started by talking to a few members of session and saying, "Hey, here's what I'm thinking of doing. And if so, here's how I plan to bring it up to the church." And those three offered great feedback, both the pros and the cons, helped to strategize. And then we brought it up to session. I guess you were not there at that meeting, right? You were not there because part of this whole process is making sure that she is able to recuse herself if someone has an issue with this. There's another member in the presbytery that members of my church can go to because there's conflict of interest here. So I brought it up to session and explained it to them, laid it out really clearly, including the fact that I'm not asking them for an endorsement, and if they offered one, I would refuse it because the separation of church and state is so important. And I wouldn't want anyone in my church to feel excluded because I'm doing this. There are members of my church who are Trump supporters running as a Democrat, and a lot of what I'm saying is very much geared towards saying Trump is doing terrible things to our country. So how can I do that while keeping those folks properly welcomed in our church? And so far, so good. but you never know when that might change. But the relationship with session has been super healthy. In the template now, every month at the session meeting, we talk about the campaign. How have things been? But not the campaign insofar as what it's doing, but how is it impacting my ability to serve the church, and how does the congregation feel about the fact that I'm doing this? And so we have several members on session and former session members that have volunteered to be sort of the face of that conversation. Signs up at the door that say, in this building, Pastor Matt is a pastor and nothing else, and we don't talk about the campaign here.
Free zone.
Yep, campaign free zone. And my campaign email is on there, and it says, if you want to talk campaign, email him at this address and we'll talk about it. Once in a while, I'll have someone come up and say, I need to ask you about the campaign. So we'll walk across the street together and we'll stand in the public park and we'll talk about it. And then we walk back, and at communion.
Oh yeah, I did have somebody walk up. I was officiating communion and she leaned in and asked how she could give to the campaign. And I just about fell over. It's like, well, we're gonna have to talk about that later. Thank you.
We're doing something else here. That's really important.
I think that was a one-off, hopefully. Most of the time people really have understood this is not the place we're talking about that. I get a lot of questions about, kind of, well, if Matt were to win, are you going to leave? Are you going to move to Washington? And I say, no, I'm not. In fact, if he wins, my job gets harder because then I have to then be a part of, like, alongside one of the largest churches in our presbytery that will also be then looking for a new pastor. So I'm going to be here with you. I'm not going anywhere just yet. So,
that's one of the questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Matt, so that the thought is, if elected, then he would essentially resign from the current position.
Because I'd spend a certain number of days per year in Washington, D.C., and they're both full-time jobs. I can't do those halfway, so I'd have to resign, which would be so sad because I do love this call very much. But we'll see.
It's a full-time job now. Actually, campaigning is a full-time job.
Absolutely.
And working 2 full-time jobs basically right now, and we'll take a leave of absence after the primary, which will show if it's still a viable campaign or not. And if it's still in the running after the primary, which is in August, then he'll take a leave of absence because the campaigning will just amp up so much between August and November. And then if he does not win, then the church is ready to welcome him back full time. I mean, that's been part of the conversation from the beginning. So the resignation would only happen if he wins. So, and it's a very uphill battle. I mean, Alaska is historically a very red political state, and the incumbent right now is a millionaire with the support of the current administration. So it is a very big hill to climb.
I reached out to one of my seminary professors, if y'all know Kenda Dean, and she has political experience as well in her family, just to ask her opinion and her guidance. And after we chatted for a while and I was asking her if I should do it, her response was, it would take a miracle and you should do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice way to level set expectations there. Like, yeah, it's an uphill climb, but it's also possible.
I also feel like we should say one of the mantras we keep telling ourselves, because there's many discouraging days in this campaign. We do not know yet if you're called to win. The voters will decide that. God will decide that. We do not know, but we know that you're called to run. Yeah. So you're called to run. You're called to speak the truth today. You're called to go to this event that you've been invited to continue to speak with integrity and compassion about Congress with a conscience and having ethics back in our local government and our national government. And you continue to show up faithfully day after day, then we will see what God's plan is. Yeah. We don't know what it is. So
when I mentioned this to our session, I used the analogy of how the Apostle Paul was called to communities to preach the gospel. Sometimes that resulted in a church community coming into existence. Other times it resulted in Paul getting his butt kicked and exiled or imprisoned. Sometimes it turned out with the happy ending, and other times it turned out with trauma and eventually imprisonment and death. And so I don't think that's in my future from this, but there's a good chance that at the end of all this, I just feel badly bruised, and that's the outcome on my side. But the call to speak these words of compassion and truth, that's the mission.
But I'll also add, when we talk about like winning would be this happy victory, we
Mm-hmm.
actually aren't looking at it that way either. If he wins,
It's gonna be
he's
hard.
going into one of the hardest,
Mm-hmm.
most brutal, negative environments I can imagine anybody doing.
Yeah.
I weigh my wish for him to win or lose often, every day. Like, which is harder? Losing would have that defeat of the people of Alaska did not choose you,
Mm-hmm.
send you into national government. Winning means, oh my gosh, you have to serve in Congress,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
just right now a
Toxic.
pretty miserable. It's not like this will be a fun job. It's you are going to do something so hard and to be a prophetic voice in one of the ugliest environments imaginable. So
Yeah.
um, it's not something we take lightly. People have accused us sometimes, like, you both are really intense. And I'm like, I don't know how else to be now, or like I'm trying to respond
Yeah.
faithfully in a really hard world. So
Yeah.
I
Democracy
I
is under threat and people can't afford to eat. So why would we not?
yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't find you intense. I find you both inspirational.
That's
I am so encouraged by how you seemingly like support each other through this because I know sometimes the person running in the front is not, it's not, how do I say this? It's harder for the partner, right? Because essentially there's nothing you can do. Like you want to punch those people who say negative things about Matt,
yeah.
but like, oh no, I got to be nice, right? And so those are some of the hardest thing. And it's kind of like, essentially you're really just waiting and see and just trying to be a supportive and provide that safe space when he comes back. And
Mhm.
so I think that's beautiful.
I
And
will
that's
also add, though, that Elizabeth served in Governor Walker's administration here in
yes,
Alaska
yeah.
and uh, helps me understand what's going on in politics now. And we talk about all this stuff. And I find that to be so informative and helpful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got an amazing wife there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate, like, Francis and I have talked a lot of, and I've even talked and preached about it, that oftentimes our ideology is way ahead of our theology, that we need to be grounded in God's word instead of
Yeah.
saying, okay, this is what I believe because this is what I believe politically. But I appreciate people that live their lives because it's grounded theologically. And that's what I've really learned about both of you in this conversation is that both of your lives are grounded theologically, not just ideology, but it is grounded in the word of God. And I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you,
Well,
Sean.
thanks. Yeah. I
Yeah.
finding myself grateful for our seminary professors and how much
Yeah.
sometimes in the moment I felt like, is this all just ethereal, up in the air philosophy stuff? Is it ever going to be practical? And lo and behold, so much of it is. And both in our church life and in politics, I'm like, yeah, you have to know what you truly believe. That's a foundation, and it's going to find its way into your words and actions, whether you want them to or not. So you better have that foundation well understood.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for both of you. It's like, how do you use a sentence or two to summarize what you feel like your calling is right now at this moment?
Hmm.
You
You
might
have one.
you might agree to this. Our first day of classes in seminary was September 12th, 2001.
Oh,
Wow.
And
wow.
from Princeton, we could see some
Yeah.
smoke
Mm-hmm.
on the horizon. And Thomas Gillespie was the seminary president, and we had a pre-scheduled, welcome dinner sort of for
Mm-hmm.
all incoming students. And he asked the question, if we were asking the question, why are we in seminary now? When so much is going crazy in the world, what does it mean to be here in seminary? Shouldn't we all be off joining the Red Cross or the Army
Mm.
or
Yeah.
something? And he said, now more than ever, you are called to speak words of love to a hurt and broken world.
Mm.
And even though that specific crisis is now 25 years behind us,
Yeah.
we're in a new crisis, and
Absolutely.
are called to speak those words of compassion and love right now, to as loudly as we can with whatever tools happen to have found their way into our toolbox over the years. And for us, that means a lot of political stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would echo that and say in my role as EP, I think the calling is to continue to offer connection. I feel like when people ask, what is the role of the presbytery, which you probably get that question a lot. There's no easy answer. We have a book of order paragraph that it's not very conversational.
Right.
We connect, we're the glue, we're holding that connectional piece together so that none of the churches feel like they're doing this alone right now.
Yeah.
And I think the call of this role right now is to help us hold steady, be connected, that nobody out there feels that they are less than or they are alone. Like I've mentioned our Alaska Native congregations. We also have 2 Korean congregations, one in Fairbanks and one in Anchorage.
Wow.
Unique communities and have their histories that are totally different than the other churches as well. So we have great diversity here, and that the risk there is that we all divide and nobody's connected anymore. And so holding those connectional places so that we can support each other and building healthier partnerships is a huge part of what I hope my call is. Healthier partnerships in the state and then also with national churches, with other denominations. I just think it's going to take a lot of us together, working harder together to go forward than ever before.
That is beautiful. I am so grateful for the time that we have here with both of you. Sean, we always end with a kind of nerdy, silly question. But so relax. The top part's over. You both did fantastically. Thrilled to have you.
We have to edit out or censor
I don't know. I mean, you tell us. We're pretty happy with whatever you share, and I feel like it comes from your heart. And I even through the distance and through the screen, I can feel both of your heart for the place and for the community there. And I think that is just very touching and endearing. So thank you.
Yeah.
Sean?
Okay, here's the question. We keep reframing it in different places, in different ways. In those dark days where things are just overwhelming, what is your comfort food?
Oh, well, we know exactly what it is. Yes.
It's red wine and smart food popcorn. That can fix any problem that you might have. What hard day you've had, you get a good television show, West Wing, Battlestar Galactica. What have you been watching?
Oh, I just finished Battlestar Galactica again.
And you have smart food popcorn with red wine and you're good to go.
Yep.
Oh, you guys are easy.
Okay, I'll just add a different one. Yeah. When people come to visit Alaska, what do they need to try? What is the food that they need to try when they come visit Alaska?
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
Gosh, that's a hard one. For tourists breezing through, we have a couple of restaurants we like to send people to, one of them being Moose's Tooth Pizza. That's an easy one. But there's a lot of culturally important food, and the biggest one would be salmon.
Would be salmon. You want to salmon or halibut, and if you're going to go into any of the indigenous communities and they offer you whale or walrus, you're going to want to try that. But here in South Central Alaska, I think we try to have salmon for our visitors. Yeah.
Wow.
Out right now. So
anybody listening that has extra salmon in your freezer.
Salmon is not only delicious and wonderful, it's also a huge cultural thing
of the state.
and it's a huge industry. Yeah, it really touches everything up here.
Okay, salmon, how is it grilled, blackened?
How do you cook salmon?
My favorite would be very simple on the grill with lemon and a little bit of pepper, and then the next day, whatever leftovers there are, into salmon Alfredo.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes if it's colder and I don't feel like grilling, we'll make up like a teriyaki maple glaze kind of, and that's pretty yummy.
Also, salmon is great, and sometimes we've been gifted smoked salmon. So smoked salmon with cream cheese as a dip is a perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Francis, we're taking this place on the road. We're taking this thing on the road.
There you go. We've been kind of compiling a list of people telling us what they need to try.
Coming up.
Yeah. So since I have both of you here, who's the cook? Who's the better cook?
You're the
Matt loves to grill. So I would say when it comes to grilling, though, that's where you're
I do like to
yeah.
grill. I would say you do more of it, but I've gotten better over the years and I've increased my percentage. We're not quite 50-50, but like 60-40
I like to cook
ish.
to the seasons. So yeah, if it's winter, I have different meals I love to make
No,
in the season.
it's more specific. She has an amazing gift to make a meal that specifically matches that day's weather. So
Oh,
like
wow.
down to like what's the barometric
When I
temperature?
had
I
more
gotta choose
time,
based
I
on
did
that.
this more. This year is a weird year, and we're finding
Yeah.
that sometimes that smart food wine joke we made earlier, that's dinner. We're like, maybe we should, like a
Yeah.
piece of protein. This is all we have time for because they're just going back and forth so much right now. Good job.
Oh,
But um, we do love to cook. We love to grill in the summer. We are just having a slow start to summer though. It's still in the 50s up here.
Yeah.
It is a
yeah.
cold spring and summer right now. But
Wow. Wow.
you're welcome to come. We would love to host you
Yeah.
if you want to come.
Well, we are just inviting ourselves, just like our last guest. We're just like we invite we were talking to the Presbyterian leader over at the Presbytery of San Juan,
Oh
and
yeah.
he was sharing with us, what to eat when we get to San Juan, and so I was like, oh yeah, I guess, and so we asked, is that a home cooked meal that you're saying, or is it something we can purchase outside? And he said, oh no, it's home cooked meal. And Sean and I was just like, oh, I guess we'll just see you in your house. So
That's
we're
right.
inviting ourselves. We're inviting
We're coming
ourselves.
over for dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But thank you again both so much. Um, I you are in our prayers. I know this is a really, really I don't want to say tough season, but everything,
Yes.
it takes everything, all hands on deck, right? And so I'll pray for sanity. I'll definitely be sending you a lot of well wishes. And we're excited to see where God will be taking both of you. Best of luck. And again, sending you lots of prayers to keep you protected both emotionally and physically throughout this campaign journey.